Order. I'd like to welcome everybody to the 17th day of the session, Thursday, February 2nd, 2023. Thought I'd do a little today in history. So today in history on February 2nd, Groundhog Day, in 1958, Warren Air Force Base becomes part of the Strategic Air Command in keeping with its role as a missile base. Once again, highlighting the importance of the military to our nation, and we'll have a ceremony here on the floor today to congratulate and appreciate some of those folks. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Roll call for the 17th day, Thursday, February 2nd, 2023. Alamand? Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Clouston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haraldson? Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrop? Oakley? Obermuller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washit? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Swanitzer Dan? Swanitzer Dave? Speaker Summers?
Chief, let's keep that roll open. I would like to welcome Reverend Bob Thompson from the First Presbyterian Church for the prayer of the day. Please rise.
Good morning, and thank you again for the privilege of praying with you this week. During my prayer this morning, I will leave a silent time for you to pray for your loved ones. Listen now to the words from Matthew 5. You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hid. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under the bushel basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. Let us pray. Almighty God, your glory shines throughout the world. Thank you for the glorious mountains, the roaring rivers, the expansive oceans, and the wide open plains. All creation gives you glory and sings you praise. Holding the destiny of the nations in your hands, we commend our nation and our state to your merciful care, that we may live securely in peace and be guided by your providence. Give all in authority the wisdom and strength to serve you faithfully. Help us remember that we are called to serve the people of this state as lovers of truth and justice. Inspire our hearts and minds that we may seek first your kingdom and your righteousness, so that order, liberty, and peace may dwell with all people. Lord, you have given us this land as our heritage. Help us always remember your generosity and empower us to constantly do your will. Bless our land with honest industry, sound learning, and an honorable way of life. Save us from any violence, discord, or confusion, from pride and arrogance, and from any evil way. Though we come from many communities, make us a united people. God, we lift up to you the communities that these representatives call home. We pray for peace and wholeness. Give each citizen strength of purpose and concern for others, that our communities can be shining lights on a hill, displaying the love of neighbor that you have called us to. God, as the representatives are hard at work this week, there are many concerns on their hearts from their hometowns and their families, loved ones, and people from their communities whom they know personally. God of healing and wholeness, in this moment of silence, hear the prayers of each representative for those they know and love. Sovereign Lord, bless these representatives of the great state of Wyoming with energy and strength for the work that is before them today. Help them consider each item through your eyes. May their decisions reflect kindness for those who are hurting, comfort for those who are troubled, and justice for the oppressed. May their work reflect the motto of our state, ensuring equality to all citizens. God, I place each representative into your caring and strengthening arms. Keep them healthy and give them your peace, the peace that only you can give. We pray all this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I'd like to thank Reverend Thompson for joining us this week. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. House will please come to order, and we'll see if we've got most of the committees back by now. I think I still see a few wandering this way, but Chief Clerk, maybe try to finish that roll call.
Bear? Byron? Harshman?
Excused.
Hornock? Locke? Nicholas? Northrup? Oakley? Obermueller? Penn? Storer? Strock? Trujillo? Ward? Swanitzer Dan? 61 present, 1 excused.
All right, Journal Committee report.
Your Journal Committee reports that the Journal of February 1st, 2023 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Representatives Chestick and Ward.
I think we do have a doctor of the day, even though I don't see him around. It says that on my list, so I'm going to announce him whether he's here or not, and that's Dr. Thomas Radosevich. And maybe he's not here, but maybe he'll show up. And we're eventually going to have a special floor ceremony today, but I think we'll do messages from the Senate. Do we have any of those? No messages from the Senate, so I think we will go to reports from standing committees.
House Bill 192, sponsored by Representative Clouston. Education K through 12 Food Service Program, an act relating to education. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 4 Education, to whom is referred House Bill 192, Education K through 12 Food Service Program, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Allred, Andrew, Berger, Brown, Clouston, Lawley, Northrup, Obermueller, Provenza. Representative Northrup, Chairman. House Bill 195, sponsored by Appropriations, American Rescue Plan Act Appropriations Amendments, an act relating to the emergency expenses of government. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 2 Appropriations, to whom is referred House Bill 195, American Rescue Plan Act Appropriations Amendments, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Henderson, Larson, Nicholas, Sherwood, Stith, Walters, Swanitzer. Representative Nicholas, Chairman. House Bill 202, sponsored by Representative Walters. Pilot student loan payments, an act relating to education. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom was referred House Bill 202, Pilot student loan payments, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Chadwick, Clouston, O'Hearn, Trujillo, Yin, Swanitzer. Noes. Representatives Hornock, Penn, and Ward. Representative Swanitzer, Chairman. House Bill 211, sponsored by Representative Olson. Ballot harvesting, an act relating to elections. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom was referred House Bill 211, Ballot harvesting, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Chadwick, Haroldson, Harshman, Knapp, Newsom, Olson, Ottman, Yin. Noes. Representative Wiley. Representative Olson, Chairman. House Bill 212, sponsored by Representative Pendergraft. Statutory Standing Committees, Federal Review, an act relating to the legislature. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1 Judiciary, to whom is referred House Bill 212, Statutory Standing Committees, Federal Review, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Crago, Haroldson, Jennings, Rodriguez-Williams, Washit. Noes. Representatives Chestick, Nemec, Oakley, Provenza. Representative Washit, Chairman. House Bill 276, sponsored by Representative Wiley. Shed antlers and horns permit, an act relating to game and fish. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 2, Appropriations, to whom was referred House Bill 276, Shed antlers and horns permit, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Henderson, Larson, Nicholas, Sherwood, Stith, Swanitzer. Noes. Representative Walters. Representative Nicholas, Chairman. House Bill 286, sponsored by Representative Nicholas, ETS consolidation, an act relating to the administration of government. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 9, Minerals, Business, and Economic Development, to whom was referred House Bill 286, ETS consolidation, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Banks, Burkhart, Conrad, Heiner, Knapp, Larson, Lawley, Tarver, Western. Representative Burkhart, Chairman.
All right, I think we have some re-referrals. Chairman Northrup.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to re-refer 223 from the general file to your committee number 2, Appropriations.
Seeing no objection, House Bill 223 is re-referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Chairman Northrup.
Also like to re-refer file number 192 to Appropriations, your committee number 2.
Seeing no objection, House Bill 192 is re-referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. All right. We're at that order of business of bills on third reading and final passage. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I would move bills on third reading, House Bill number 103, House Bill number 121, House Bill number 124.
Mr. Majority Floor Leader, I think there's an more current list than that, isn't there? Maybe let's give you, there's some amendments that, so I think we better get you a current list, save some time. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Try this again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, this is a much shorter list. House Bill 121, House Bill 128, House Bill 160, and House Bill 190.
The reading clerk will read the consent list. Oh yeah, would anyone like to take anything off the consent list? Not? Okay, reading clerk, please read the consent list.
House Bill 121, sponsored by Representative Lawley, Property Tax Deferral Program Amendments, an act relating to property taxes being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. House Bill 128, sponsored by Representative Clouston, Voyeurism Within Enclosed Spaces, an act relating to crimes and offenses being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. House Bill 160, sponsored by Representative Pendergraft, Driver's License Veterans Designation, replacing DD Form 214, an act relating to Defense Forces and Affairs being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. House Bill 190, sponsored by Representative Harshman, Wyoming Value Added Energy and Industrial Plan, an act relating to the administration of government being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
Having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall these bills pass the House? Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Elliman. Allred. Andrew. Angelos. Banks. Bear. Berger. Brown. Burkhart. Byron. Chadwick. Chestick. Clouston. Conrad. Crago. Davis. Eklund. Haroldson. Harshman. Heiner. Henderson. Warnock. Jennings. Knapp. Larson Lloyd. Larson JT. Lawley. Locke. Nyman. Newsom. Nicholas. Nemec. Northrup. Oakley. Obermuller. O'Hearn. Olson. Ottman. Pendergraft. Penn. Provenza. Rodriguez Williams. Sherwood. Singh. Slagle. Smith. Stith. Storer. Strock. Stivar. Tarver. Trujillo. Walters. Ward. Washit. Western. Winter. Wiley. Yin. Zwonitzer Dan. Zwonitzer Dave. Speaker Summers.
Aye.
Harshman. Closing vote. Vote closed, 62 aye. As for House Bill 121, are there any changes? Singh, aye to no. Hornock, aye to no. Henn, aye to no. Ottman, aye to no. Smith, aye to no. Slagle, aye to no. Stivar, aye to no. Ward, aye to no. Strock, aye to no. Knapp, aye to no. Winter, aye to no. Bear, aye to no. Heiner, aye to no. Jennings, aye to no. Tarver, aye to no. Allemand, aye to no. Pendergraft, aye to no. Locke, aye to no. Nyman, aye to no. Davis, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 42 aye, 20 no. As for House Bill 128, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 62 aye. As for House Bill 160, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 62 aye. As for House Bill 190, are there any changes? Nyman, aye to no. Locke, aye to no. Pendergraft, aye to no. Tarver, aye to no. Banks, aye to no. Allemand, aye to no. Singh, aye to no. Hornock, aye to no. Davis, aye to no. Ottman, aye to no. Henn, aye to no. Andrew, aye to no. Slagle, aye to no. Smith, aye to no. Stivar, aye to no. Strock, aye to no. Bear, aye to no. Ward, aye to no. Haroldson, aye to no. Knapp, aye to no. Winter, aye to no. Rodriguez Williams, aye to no. Angelos, aye to no. Heiner, aye to no. Jennings, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 37 aye, 25 no.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, House Bills 121, 128, 160, and 190 have passed the House. Fellow representatives, we are honored to have Wyoming's Adjutant General, Major General Greg Porter, and Chief Master Sergeant Josh Moore, the Wyoming Senior Enlisted Leader, with us today to recognize some outstanding soldiers, airmen, and civilian employees from the Wyoming Military Department. Members of the Wyoming National Guard proudly serve as our sword and shield. As the sword, our airmen and soldiers answer the nation's call and stand ready to be lethal fighting force in the battle space. As the shield, they remain trained and ready to aid us here at home whenever and wherever they are needed. These guardsmen and civilian employees represent the best of the Wyoming Military Department. Please join me in recognizing the incredible service of these individuals. Major General, please join us.
Mr. Speaker,
Please.
thank you very much for what a great welcome. You've probably been told this before, you're a little louder than the Senate side is over there, so nice job. And there's certainly a few more smiles too, so thank you for having us today. For those of you who I've not yet met, my name is Major General Greg Porter, and I'm the Adjutant General for the state of Wyoming. I have the privilege to be the 27th Adjutant General. I want to thank all of you for just giving us a few brief moments for me to come in and recognize some of the extremely professional people that we have in the Wyoming Military Department. We have some really great human beings. We got some folks here on the in front of us, but we also have some up in the gallery as well who decided to join us. So thank you again for letting us be here with you today. I did want to start out with thanking some folks, and some recognizing some folks. First, I'd like to recognize Representative Don Burkhart, House District 15, for his hard work and dedication serving as the chair of the House Transportation and Military Affairs Committee during the 66th legislature. Sir, appreciate our time working together. Tackled some difficult issues, and your counsel was always well taken. Thank you, sir. But I would also like to recognize our new chair, Representative Landon Brown, House District 9. Chairman Brown. Chairman Brown is no stranger to the Military Affairs and Transportation Committee. He's served on it before, but even when he's not serving on that committee, he continues to champion issues for the military, to include our reserves and our active component folks. Sir, looking forward to your leadership and vision. Thank you so much for your continued service. Hey, I would also like to very much recognize our Commander-in-Chief, Governor Mark Gordon. He's not in the state right now, so I shouldn't be accused of brown nosing, but I did want to just let you know his leadership and vision has been exceptional. It's been a volatile couple of years, I think we all know that, but Governor Gordon has led from the front with purpose, forethought, and unmatched calm and common sense. His care for the soldiers and airmen and the people that work for him is unmatched, and it's true. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I think I've told this body before, there's a lot of similarities between serving in the National Guard and serving in the legislature. The first one is this part-time job often becomes a full-time job, and you know that more than anybody else. And probably the second thing is nobody calls you unless something bad's going to happen. So appreciate that. But really, the thing that really binds us is service. The service that you give to the people of the state of Wyoming, the service that our soldiers and airmen and the employees that serve with us give to the state and nation, that really makes the difference. And for you, serving in the legislature, that serving the residents and the families are important, but you serve our future. You are here to ensure that our future exists and that we, as in the state of Wyoming, continue to be the best state in the world. And I can't tell you, thank you how much for all that work. Appreciate it. I wanted to take the majority of our time this morning introducing you to some really special people. My intent was to have a few more people out here today, but roads and missions have sort of dwindled a little bit on the folks that I got to bring today, but I'll talk about them nonetheless. To begin with, I'd like to recognize our members of our Veterans Commission. We have in the front here our director, Tim Shepard. In the gallery, we have several members of the commission that do this job, gratis, only because of the love for the veterans that they have. But we wanted to recognize one particular veteran service officer this year, and that's Mr. Brad Klein. Brad is a graduate of Cody High School, married a Cody girl. He has dedicated the last 10 years to serving veterans of our state, helping them navigate the complex disability benefit system. He is an asset to the team and has made positive impact on many of our veterans' lives. Our VSOs assist our vets by bringing in over $72 million of the $238 million federal dollars provided in compensation and pension for the state of Wyoming. The roads prevented him from being down here today, but I felt it's still important to recognize Brad for the great work he does. Congratulations, Brad. Hey, next I'd like to recognize our Wyoming Military Department State Employee of the Year, Ms. Jessica Hallberg. Jessica was born right here in Cheyenne, but she was raised in Burns. She is a contract manager for the Construction and Facilities Management Department. In her first year as the contract manager, we saw unprecedented throughput of procurement actions and contracts. Thanks to her effort, the Wyoming Army National Guard will execute 3 military construction projects simultaneously over the next 4 years, 4 years. So we couldn't have done that without you, Jessica. Thank you very much for all you do. Next up, I wanted to introduce to you our 2 non-commissioned officers of the year. I have one present with us here today, Technical Sergeant Roybal, and then Sergeant Holloway couldn't make it down today. But let me tell you a little bit about these great airmen and soldiers. Tech Sergeant Roybal was born here in Cheyenne as a graduate of Central High School. He is a member of the 243rd Air Traffic Control Squadron and was the lead planner for a 3-day hub and spoke training event encompassing 6 joint service agencies, 121 air traffic controllers, maintenance personnel, spread across 6 different locations in the state. He processed air mission requests for all participants, enabling 6 airframes to support landing zone, drop zone, and assault landing maneuvers, resulting in 1,041 aircraft operation, the most in air traffic control history. For all his hard work, it is easy to see that he was selected as the top NCO in the Wyoming Air National Guard. Sergeant Roybal. Sergeant Tyler Holloway was born and raised in Sheridan, Wyoming, and he still lives there, and that's why he can be here today, because the roads didn't allow him to make it down. But he is the winner of the Army National Guard Best Warrior Competition for non-commissioned officers. So not only the state of Wyoming, but nationally. That's right, folks. He is the #1 NCO in the National Guard. Sergeant Holloway competed with over 100,000 eligible non-commissioned officers within the Army National Guard in a bunch of different competitions, whether it was, he started out in the state, won the Best Warrior within the state, then he went to the region, won the Best Warrior in the region, and then he competed nationally, won the Best Warrior in the National Guard. From there, he moved on and competed with the Army teams. He became part of the National Guard Army Best Warrior Squad and competed against all Army teams. They made it in the top 4 of all Army squads in the entire Army. So he is truly an outstanding NCO and individual, and I wish we could have him here today. But please, thank you, Tyler, for all the hard work. Finally, I wanted to recognize the 2022 Adjutant General's Ride for the Brand Award winner. This Ride for the Brand Award is an annual award given to the units that exemplify what it means to ride for the Wyoming National Guard brand. Major Casey Henry, graduate of Cheyenne Central High School, and First Sergeant Aaron Benson, graduate of Torrington High School, couldn't be here today because I cleverly put them on a mission before they could come down here. They're actually in the northern part of the state trying to make their way back down now. But over this past year, they've done an outstanding job. They have dedicated countless hours to training proficiency in order to respond rapidly when a chemical, nuclear, or biological threat is present in our communities. Working with our partner nation of Tunisia, the Wyoming Civil Support Team is the first and so far only civil support team to deploy overseas and train our foreign partners. They do an outstanding job, and congratulations to Major Henry and First Sergeant Benson. You have some great men and women that serve and live in the communities you all represent. I am amazed every day at their talent, dedication, and mostly their humility. What they do in service to the state and nation, they do so of their own free will, fully knowing the burden it places on their employers and, more importantly, their families. Yet they do it for service, not for themselves. And we need them. Truthfully, we need more of them. We have enemies. The United States is contested in the air, land, sea, space, and cyber domain every day. Somewhere in the world, right now, there is a fight. We have 37 Wyoming National Guardsmen out in that fight. Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Kuwait, Djibouti, any theater you can name, we have Wyoming Guardsmen in there. And we'll continue to. We'll actually start having more of them as the year continues to go on. You've seen what Russian aggression means to the people of Ukraine. I believe we know what would happen if that aggression is left unchecked. China is a whole different ballgame. They seek nothing less than to be the preeminent power in the world, a world where there is no place for democracy, freedom, and individual rights. Your work here in the legislature is the free exercise of our government in accordance with the will of the people, expressed through you, the elected representatives. This is what makes our republic in the state of Wyoming special. It takes people willing to do the hard work, make tough choices, prioritize. Thank all of you for what you do. Never take that for granted, that what you do, the impact that you make for our folks. You always get to hear the bad things that happen, but I tell you, without your work here, this would not be the special place that it is to live. For myself and my brothers and sisters in uniform, our job is to guarantee to you that you can continue to do that work. We have a code in the Wyoming National Guard, and this is what it says. It is an honor to serve in the Cowboy Guard. In our formations, we take care of each other. In combat and across our state or nation, there is no difference. Our people are the priority. We answer our nation's call to fight and win against any enemy, and to also safeguard our fellow citizens. Therefore, we have two moral responsibilities. Prepare the Cowboy Guard to serve as a sword and shield while taking care of our soldiers, our airmen, our civilians, and our families. Thank you all for what you do. Thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about the great people we have serving with us. Godspeed. Bless all of you.
General Porter and Chief Moore, thank you for joining us and allowing us to honor these outstanding men and women. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your service to Wyoming and the nation. We have a special resolution, and we're going to do that presentation. And so, reading clerk, I think I'll have you read the resolution. And we have in attendance, as we read this, before we read it, we have in attendance Jody Gostis, is that correct? Is she here? It's his wife, okay. Friends Marty Harbick, Terry Harbick, and Russ Talander. And so, Chief Clerk, if you'll please read the resolution.
The 67th Legislature of the State of Wyoming recognizes Major Theodore W. Gostis. A joint resolution of the undersigned members of the 67th Legislature of the State of Wyoming recognizing Major Theodore W. Gostis, posthumously on Military Day 2023 for his patriotism, dedication, and sacrifice to the United States of America. Whereas Ted Gostis, born in 1938, was commissioned a second lieutenant in the United States Army through the Army ROTC program at the University of Wyoming on July 28, 1961, and went on active duty beginning March 28, 1963. And whereas, after attending infantry school in the U.S. Army Intelligence School for Counterinsurgency Training and Foreign Language School, Captain Gostis served as a German interpreter with the United States Army Europe in West Germany from April 1964 to March 1967. And whereas Ted deployed to Southeast Asia, where he served as an intelligence officer with the 135th Military Intelligence Battalion of the 525th Military Intelligence Group in South Vietnam from April 1967 until he was captured and taken as prisoner of war during the Tet Offensive on February 1st, 1968. And whereas, for 5 years, 1 month, and 15 days, Ted was a captive in North Vietnam, surviving on only 2 small rice balls and approximately 4 ounces of water a day. Ted was kept in a hole in the ground with 35 fellow prisoners in a space meant to house 9 people. Ted was tortured and abused by being struck in the head and the stomach repeatedly with an AK-47, hung from a rope for extended periods of time, and denied water, all while watching his fellow troops die. And whereas, during 4.5 years of solitary confinement, Ted was beaten repeatedly. Ted was informed he was to be sentenced to death and forced to wear a cloth target on his chest. Ted's health deteriorated. The abuse Ted suffered led to abdominal damage, 18 abscessed teeth, and eventually affected his heart. And whereas, Ted was finally released on March 16, 1973, during Operation Homecoming after spending 1,871 days in captivity. Ted was awarded the Bronze Star, 2 Purple Hearts, and the POW Medal. Ted endured years of therapy to help with the psychological suffering he endured. He made a full recovery and retired from the Army in December of 1977. Ted began drawing and painting about life as a POW and participating in speaking engagements to express to others what it meant to be a POW. And whereas Ted passed away on January 31st, 2023, in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and while we were no longer to be able to listen to him share his compelling story, we are heartened that his story will forever live on through his book, Prisoner, which brings to light the terrifying experiences of POWs and the sacrifices they endured for our freedom. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the undersigned members of the 67th Legislature of the State of Wyoming that on behalf of the State of Wyoming, we are hereby honor and pay tribute to the patriotism and bravery of Major Theodore W. Costas. We are extremely appreciative of his service to our country. We commend his unique and unparalleled sacrifice and extend our condolences to his family at his recent passing. Signed on this day, on this second day of February 2023, Senator Ogden Driscoll, President of the Wyoming Senate, and Albert Summers, Representative Albert Summers, Speaker of the House of the Wyoming House of Representatives.
So what a story, right? Well, if that doesn't get you nothing, well, what an honor for us to be able to honor him. And for those of you that knew him, we wish we had known him. And so thank you for coming. And, I just say maybe we just give a round of applause for Major Ted Gostis and for all he's done for Wyoming, for the nation, for POW people, for POW prisoners of war. What a story. So hats off to him.
I just want to thank you, all of you, on the behalf of my dad. He's always been a hero of Wyoming in everything that he's done. He's had over 500 speaking engagements all across the United States to support the veteran. He has permanent art galleries, or his art is permanently shown in Chicago, and they've opened up a new veterans place in Florida. So if you ever get a chance, you can go there and see some of his art. But more importantly than his art, it was the camaraderie that he had with other veterans. And other veterans have also have outletted their angers and anguishes and the tortures that they've gone through and the horrors of war through their art. And so he's really championed those people too. When I called him last week, when he was still alive, he was very, very happy to accept this honor from you guys. And I have, over the years, have seen so much more of a tremendous support for the veteran. And I think that is awesome. Here in Wyoming, we've always been supportive of it. In fact, when my dad came back, there was nothing but support. But nationwide, it's just a pleasure to see that these guys are being honored the way they should be. He was a warrior. He survived a lot of stuff. But he recovered, and he will not be forgotten. Thank you.
We really owe a lot to the nation's military and to all those who've served and all those who have died and to all of those who have been prisoners of war. It's really humbling to hear a story like that. We're at that order of business of bills on third reading and final passage. The first bill for our consideration is House Bill 19.
House Bill 19, sponsored by Tribal. State Indian Child Welfare Act Task Force, an act relating to children, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
Representative Ottman, I believe. Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like, now I won't be able to see the instructions. I had an amendment, House amendment.
Would you like to move that amendment?
Oh, yes, I would like to move House Amendment 3.
Third
number
reading
one.
amendment number
Third reading
one?
amendment, number 1, yes, to House Bill 19. I would like to delete, withdraw. Thank you, I'm sorry.
All right.
I would like to withdraw that amendment. Thank you.
All right. Third reading amendment number one to House Bill 19 has been withdrawn. House Bill 19, having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Allred? Andrew? Angelos? Banks? Bear? Berger? Brown? Burkhart? Byron? Chadwick? Chestick? Clauston? Conrad? Crago? Davis? Eklund? Haroldson? Aye. Harshman? Heiner? Henderson? Hornock? Jennings? Knapp? Larson Lloyd? Larson JT? Lawley? Locke? Nyman? Newsom? Nicholas? Nemec? Northrup? Oakley? Obermuller? O'Hearn? Olson? Ottman? Pendergraft? Penn? Provenza? Rodriguez Williams? Sherwood? Singh? Slagle? Smith? Stith? Storer? Strock? Stivar? Tarver? Trujillo? Walters? Ward? Washut? Western? Winter? Wiley? Yin? Zwanitzer Dan? Zwanitzer Dave? Speaker Summers? Are there any changes? Bear, aye to no. Haroldson, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 48 aye, 14 no.
House Bill 19, having received the affirmative vote of majority. Oh. You go, okay. House Bill 19, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, House Bill 19 has passed the House. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 99.
House Bill 99, sponsored by Revenue, Property Tax Refund Program, an act relating to property tax being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
Representative Heiner.
Speaker, thank you. I move third reading to amendment number 1 to House Bill 99 and ask for your favorable consideration. What this simply does is change the 5-year requirement of residency before you can apply for this tax refund down to 2 years. We heard a lot of conversation about making this more accessible. And members of the body, I remind you of what we just went through a few days ago, how cold it was. If someone lives here in Wyoming and is attempting to buy a house and has suffered through 2 winters in Wyoming, I think they're starting to put down some good roots. And this is to help those individuals. It's not for those that come into the state that have enough cash to buy a house outright. It's for those that are working more than one job, struggling to make ends meet, and they're trying to stay in Wyoming. So I urge you to vote in favor of dropping this requirement down to just 2 years rather than 5.
Anybody for their first time? Representative Oakley for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would urge a no vote on this amendment 5 years isn't an incredibly long time, but I think if you just look at the system as a whole, the idea with our property taxes going up double digits year over year for the last couple of years is because of people moving in. And that's why we're seeing this big increase, which is in essence a big part of creating the problem. So like it or not, the idea is targeted at people who, we always use the example for some of this property tax relief stuff as somebody who maybe lives in an expensive county to the west and originally bought their house for $150,000 and now it's worth $850,000, and the only thing they want to do is live in their home. So I think there's a targeted thought to who we're trying to get, not just have somebody move in and then immediately give them property tax relief. It's just not the targeted approach in my, I would submit to you, policy decision. I don't think 5 years is too long. And again, I think a lot of times we're trying to hit somebody who's been in their house for a very long time. So on and against.
Chairman Harshman for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against, I appreciate the good bringer bringing this, but really, again, I don't want to be repetitive, but why are we in this issue of the spike in property taxes is because a spike in valuation. Why did that happen? People have moved into our state, paid exorbitant amounts for housing in your area, and then that drives all of our valuations up. It wasn't anything else than that. It's sales in your area, right? And so the folks, all of us who have been here for a long time, we're affected by it. And so that's why this is in there. I think it's a common sense thing for Wyoming people. And so I'd urge you to vote against this. And then when those folks, if they're already qualified, been here for 5 years, great. But this is intended really for us folks who have been through this spike now. So on and against. Thank you.
Representative Pendergraft for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very sensitive to the needs of people who have been the targeted group that we're talking about. But the objective, as I see it, of a legislator who imposes a tax is that tax is imposed as fairly and evenly and equitably as possible for the amendment. Thank you.
Representative Yin for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and against. So maybe to remind the body, this is a program that we have to fund legislatively for us to give any refunds at all, right? So for example, if we don't fund it fully to match the number of requests that come, that means that there are people who are lacking and that don't get refunds, or we amortize it and so some people get less of a refund than they would like. So I guess the question is, should we have the people that live between 2 and 5 years in Wyoming be at equal priority for the refund program than people who have lived here longer than 5 years? And what I would say to you respectively is that we should make sure that the people that have lived here a long time get priority to make sure that they stay in their house and they don't get kicked out where they have to leave Wyoming altogether. So on and against, thank you.
Representative Jennings for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So let's be clear what we're doing. This is a Band-Aid. This is not reform of our tax structure. You're going to see another opportunity to at least look at that a little later on. This is a Band-Aid. And to put the numbers in perspective, the department that collected taxes from us, the number was like somewhere very close to $464 million in property tax over last year. It was a huge number. It was shy of $500 million. This refund, if it's utilized very well, in the past has only done less than $2 million. 2 million, that's with an M. And I grant you, it's a better Band-Aid. It helps a little bit, but it's not projected to give back 400 million. It's projected maybe in the tens, maybe. And so I would urge you to think about those people that moved here in the middle of refugee situations, how they view it. They're paying money, that some of their taxes went up 30, 40, 50%. And if you look at what we're able to give them back in a Band-Aid, I'd urge you to vote yes on this.
Representative Larson for your first time.
Thank you. I think the interesting thing here is on property tax refunds, what's happening is we are making sure that the traditional, those who receive property tax, which is our locals and our schools, remain whole, and then we're impacting revenue, state revenue that we here are trying to figure out what to do with it. So it impacts the state more than it impacts the state. And so why are our property taxes so high? In my part of the world, it's because folks have moved in out of state and paid over asking price for property, driven the assessed value up, and hence property taxes are higher. So if you're going to come here and buy property at an inflated amount because we have no state income tax, we have no corporate tax, we have 40 other states that have higher property tax than we do, even where we're at now. Well, if you're going to come here and take advantage of that, then you're going to have to pay property taxes for at least 5 years before you're eligible for this. I think it's fair, and I'd encourage you to vote no.
Representative Henderson for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm on and against this well-intentioned amendment. I just ask you to consider if you were one of these folks who was eligible and try to look at it through their eyes. You know best what your life circumstances are. This isn't mandatory, but it's not just one piece. It's not just the residence. It's not just the level of assets, income. So it's all of this taken together. And the Revenue Committee has done a good job taking public testimony from all sorts of stakeholders. And, you know, this is sensible, it's good public policy, and it's timely. And I, with respect, would say this is not so much a giveaway as a life ring. The circumstances that you and I are not personally aware of, but we know because of what the good chairman said earlier, the reasons. I just say, let's keep this going. It's a good policy, and vote no on this amendment. Thank you.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time? Representative Jennings for your second time.
So, again, I'd ask you, the body, to look at the numbers of this. We're not asking you to vote no on the bill. We're in favor of the bill. We're actually trying to expand it just a little bit. We're talking about almost $464 million above what they took in the year preceding year. And then you look at the state. I mean, yesterday, this body decided to spend $70 million plus. We're talking about here, how much more will this help? It'll help a handful of people that moved here in the last 3 years who have I mean, it's not like they're just going to move here, get the tax advantage that I personally don't believe is accurate portrayal, but they moved here. It's likely they're going to spend money in our communities. They're going to pay taxes on everything that they buy here. They're going to continue paying property taxes. Why would we not want to help those people who have moved here and are going to contribute to our communities? We're talking a very small number here in the low millions that this would increase. Shoot, we spent 10 times the amount that this will probably increase it yesterday. Let's stand up for our Wyoming citizens. Vote yes on the amendment, yes on the bill.
Representative Pendergraft for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would remind you all of the book by George Orwell entitled Animal Farm.
Okay.
Excuse me, no proper names. There's a book out there that you probably have heard of. At any rate, in this story, everybody was equal except some were more equal than others. From my perspective, it's pretty evil when we start picking out winners and losers. If we can afford the tax break, and it's obvious from what we did here yesterday that that's not a problem. I didn't see very many people worried about what we were spending. And let's apply that evenly and across the board. Let's make it fair and equitable. I do urge and I vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Representative Pendergraph, we try not to judge intent like evil on the floor of the House either. Representative Stith, you weren't for your first time, so you can't go now. So Chairman Harshman for your second time.
Thank you. I actually was just standing here, but you called on me. Mr. Speaker, thank you. But really, let's keep this in perspective of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to provide immediate refund relief to a program that is very popular. It's been around for decades and is becoming more and more popular to solve a problem of many people moving here. Not a problem, an instance of many people moving here and driving the price of real estate up. And that drives our taxes up. And let's just, a little point, there were some things said about the rate of taxation. Our rate of taxation is 0.6%. Our residential property tax is the lowest or one of the lowest in the United States of America. Now, 0.6%. Mine went up 17%. Had a couple people down the road from out of state, I won't name the states, they bought property, paid a lot of money, drove the value of mine up. So again, so I had to pay an extra $500 or whatever it was. But the bottom line is that this is intended for people who've been here, Wyoming folks who've been here, and after they're here for 5 years, great, apply for it. But as far as picking winners and losers, it's not an evil process. That's what we do all the time in here. That's what we do. We make decisions between when we make laws. And so that's all part of it. So thank you. Appreciate the debate. Please vote no. Thank you.
Representative Heiner for your second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me tell you a real-life situation that this could help. A family moved into the state because he had a very good job offer, went to work, and they were doing great. They bought a house, and then for different reasons, they got a divorce. And a lot of times, the mother gets to keep the house. Now, all of a sudden, her revenue has dropped to where it's very difficult to pay the bills, but also the property taxes are going up 20%, maybe even higher than that. And so on a fixed budget, it becomes very difficult for this single mom to make ends meet, because not only are we seeing the effect of higher property tax, but these people that just moved in are seeing that as well. Their taxes are going up as rapidly as ours are. So this single mom wants to stay in the community where her children are going to school, but she has to work 2 jobs to be able to pay her bills. This is just a Band-Aid. It's not a long-term solution. So they've been here for a couple of years. They've got roots, their kids are in school, they've got friends, and they want to stay. So this just opens that up a little bit, allows some of the people that are here to be able to stay here, those that have started putting down roots and are trying to make a living. So I urge your favorable consideration of this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All those in favor of third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 99 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. Third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 99 has failed. Division having been called, all those in favor of third reading amendment 1, please stand. Okay, all those opposed, please stand. Okay, thank you. Third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 99 has failed, 27 to 34. Next amendment is Representative Storr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move third reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 99 and ask for your consideration. I'm going to leave out the word favorable. I just feel like it's important for this body to talk about just whether we've hit the right mark for this income limit on this bill. And I just wanted to share a few things with you that we've been talking about in committee and get a sense from the body. So what the bill does is it does raise the median income limit from 75% to 125% of your county or the states in order to be eligible for the refund program. Just as income levels for certain folks in Teton County increases our county median, as we've heard in other programs, Teton County's median also kind of inflates the state's median income. So what this means is just that in some counties, the limit will be something closer to 150% of median income. And I just want to make sure folks are good with that. While some folks have seen this relief as rather temporary, we have funded the refund program for 10 of the last 13 years. It has been around for a long time, as spoken earlier, and I suspect it will continue. And I just think we should recognize that it's easier to expand eligibility in the future than it is to contract eligibility. So I just ask that the body consider whether 125% is the right number, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Vice Chair Oakley for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and in favor. So looking at the qualifications for this program, of course, one of them is income. And at 125% of the median income, 4 counties are at $100,000 or over. And there's several more in the 90s. The state median is 86.6. And so it is a policy decision, but we're trying to hit a certain population here, people who need relief. This is funded by government dollars. And so I think, 100% of median income is it's still half, right? Like half of the people. So if we're trying to keep it to a specific level, I think lowering that fits our goals. I just throwing it out there when you think about all the different ways that we could help low income people, and we do throughout the budget. And then this starts offering property tax relief, government funded, at people who make $100,000 or more. I think that's too high. I think this, even 100%, is more than fair. I urge your favorable consideration.
Representative Locke for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There was a discussion, when we were discussing this before, that we need to get that number up high enough to make sure we actually help some people, right? Because a lot of the people in the lower income range, they don't even own houses. And as most of you know, some of the numbers were brought up. An additional roughly $500 million is collected from these folks. And so I'm on and against this amendment because I really do think we need to strongly consider the ability to help these people, get some true assistance out to some folks. I know in my neighborhoods, knocked on many doors. I know everybody here did. But quite honestly, I had people who have had it go up as much as 100%, depending on the neighborhood you're in. I understand it's being driven by a lot of things, but it was not uncommon to see people in the last 2 years who it's gone up 50, 60%. That was very common in some of the neighborhoods. So I'm on and against this amendment. We really want to get this at a level where we're actually helping some people out there. Thank you.
Representative Byron for your first time.
Thank you, Speaker. On and against this amendment as well. We spoke in committee about this, and we talked about 105%. We threw some numbers around, but I think the body really needs to think about that extra 25% of the income limit really will help your neighbors. And I thought it was well thought out. It's not a lot of money. It's not going to increase the program by that much, but it will help your neighbors. So I hope you join me in being against this amendment and leave it at 125.
Anybody else for their first time? Chairman Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, just some kind of numbers on this, what that would look like, so that the Wyoming medium, dropping it from 125 to 100, then would take it from about 86 down to 67,000, be the Wyoming median. Some examples of counties: Albany would go from 75 to 60. Campbell would go from 107 to 85. Natrona from 83,000 household income to 65. Sublet 104 to 80. Teton 122 to about 98, and Weston County 74 to about 60,000. So that's kind of would change these thresholds, lowering it down a little bit. So if you want to talk some more about these numbers, be happy to help. Thanks, Mr. Speaker.
Anybody else for their first time? Anybody for their second time before the sponsor? Representative Storr.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I just add that my calculations are that the difference between 75% and 125 will put about another 20,000 people or so eligible for this. So with that, I call for the question.
All those in favor of third reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 99 signify by saying aye. All those opposed? No. Third reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 99 has failed. Representative Storr.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Just wanted to be clear, so that was pretty good. I move third reading amendment number 3 to House Bill 99, and in this case, I do ask for your favorable consideration. As we just discussed, House Bill 99's goal is to provide targeted property tax relief to people who really do face a burden. As we just discussed, there's a residency test, there's an income limit, and there's also an asset limit. The asset test does exempt retirement funds as defined in the bill as bona fide pensions and IRAs. However, for a lot of people who have actually saved for their retirement outside of these kinds of vehicles and have done a good job of planning for their golden years, the goal of this amendment is to address the fact that such folks don't currently qualify for the refund program, even though they can be particularly burdened with a tax when it represents a significant percent of their income. Our goal is not to open up the program to people with high incomes and assets who can afford their tax, but to those who are truly being priced out of their homes. This is particularly true in my district, but this would apply across the state, even though I do believe that it's a fairly small number of people that it would apply to. So again, it would make more sense to be able to redefine our retirement assets in the bill, but I haven't found a way to do this without opening up the program to my very wealthy constituents. So I think the best way to provide relief is a device that's used in 18 other states. It looks at tax liability as a percent of income, and it exempts someone from the asset test if their property tax liability represents 10% or more of that income. The income limitation we just discussed and the residency requirement would still apply. And so I see this as a reasonable approach, targeting our refund program to people who can really help. And I just have one example of some constituents in my community to make this a little bit more real. There are a couple in their 60s. They bought their home in 1988 for $90,000. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot house on a small lot. They've raised 2 daughters. They've worked as a physician's assistant, a substitute teacher, and run their own small business. They've served as president of their PTA, volunteered in numerous other ways in their community, and have also been the primary caregiver of one of their moms for 10 years. Now retired, hoping to enjoy their golden years, they've built a modest nest egg. But they suddenly find that their home value has skyrocketed to $1.5 million, which translates to a $9,000 tax bill, which is a significant portion of their income. So my question to the body is really, with someone like this, who I think we'd all want to call our neighbor, do we want them to cash out and leave our community, or do we want them to stay? And with that, I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Representative Bear for your first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This may be a shocking moment for this body. I am on this amendment with my good colleague from the northwest corner of the state, and I want to explain why. I think this is a good move. If you have an opportunity, I have a trifold that the department that controls this particular department, or this income for the state, puts out at your local county office, and it explains why assets are, it explains how assets are used to determine whether you qualify for this refund or not. And so I'd be happy to share that with you. But what it does, as the good bringer of the amendment stated, is it takes a particular group of people and excludes them. And it is a particular group of people that I think we have failed to think about in this situation we're having in the northeast corner or northwest corner of the state. And it can affect the northeast corner as well. And that is your small business owners. We talk about the people who can't afford to live in these areas that we need to work, but what about the people who brought the businesses that allow them to work? They also, I'm here to tell you, as a small business owner, it's not about getting rich quick. It is hard work, and you inch out a little bit at a time, some equity, and that becomes an asset. And you may turn it into a 401k, or you may keep it as a business in your community. But now your taxes have become so high on your home that you can't afford to stay there and operate your business and provide that service for the people of your community. So the good bringer of the amendment brought something that protects us from giving this to just everybody. There's still a qualification, and it is that percentage of your income that you're going to pay for these property taxes. You know, we might say, well, they should just go find a less expensive home. Well, that's the problem. Do we really want to force them out of their community where they're providing a great service, or have for years, because they can't afford to stay in the home that they have had for years? So I am on and for the amendment, and I hope you will vote for it as well. Thank you.
Anybody else for their first time? Second time? Sponsor? Question? Question having been called, all those in favor of third reading amendment number 3 to House Bill 99 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Third reading amendment number 3 to House Bill 99 is passed. House Bill 99 having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Elliman, Allred, Andrew, Angelos, Banks, Bear, Berger, Brown, Burkhart, Byron, Chadwick, Chestick, Clauston, Conrad, Crago, Davis, Eklund, Haroldson, Harshman, Heiner, Henderson, Warnock, Jennings, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson JT, Lawley, Locke, Nyman, Newsom, Nicholas, Nemec, Northrup, Oakley, Obermuller, O'Hearn, Olson, Ottman, Pendergraft, Penn, Provenza, Rodriguez-Williams, Sherwood, Singh, Slagle, Smith, Stith, Storer, Strzok, Stivar, Tarver, Trujillo, Walters, Ward, Washit, Western, Winter, Wiley, Yin, Zwanitzer Dan, Zwanitzer Dave, Speaker Summers. Are there any changes? Jennings, No to aye. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 62 aye.
House Bill 99, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, House Bill 99 has passed the House. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 103. Reading clerk, please read the bill.
House Bill 103, sponsored by Representative Haroldson. Political party affiliation, declaration, and changes. An act relating to elections being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
There are amendments. Speaker Summers.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'd like to move third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 103 and ask for your favorable consideration. So I think really the conversation we're going to have is where should this bill land as far as when you can change your party affiliation. So the bill started at May 15th, I believe, and then it became 45 days before the election. So what this amendment would do would be 14 days before the primary election. I do believe you should have to declare your party affiliation before the primary, before the day of the primary. But I go back to 1911 when we started the primary process, and at that time, it was only 10 days, but when you could change up to 10 days prior to the primary. I think it was in the 50s is when we got rid of any requirement really, except you had to do it 14 days before or up on the day of the primary. And so what this would do is just take us kind of back to where we began, and that is not less than 14 days before the primary. So with that, I'd stand for any questions.
Are there any? Representative Haroldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So going back to the original conversation on this bill, there was a couple bills that were considered and a couple bills that were brought forward, and this 14-day window has been discussed. And I believe that the 14-day window is definitely a conversation that we need to have. So this ballot initiative that is moving forward will continue to move forward if we take this 14-day window. That's the reality. They really want. They originally said a May 1st window, and the ballot initiative, the public that is moving forward with the ballot initiative, and when we drafted the bill, we put that basically May 15th window in. And so we need to understand that will continue to move forward and continue to be something that we will have to pay attention to and address if we move forward with this amendment. So I'm definitely on and against this amendment. I believe that we have a very good bill in front of us that addresses this issue and addresses it in a way that we will accomplish our job and we can silence this initiative because the legislature and we, the representatives of these people, have listened to them and have moved forward with this. So I would definitely ask for a no vote on this 14-day window.
Chairman Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a little bit of pushback. So I listened to this in committee and this group coming in and basically threatening the legislature that if we didn't pass this bill, there would be a ballot initiative circulating and they would take it by force. I'd just first say we haven't had a successful ballot initiative in over 2 decades. And we had some bills out here this year to be able to fix our ballot initiative process, which is the second most difficult in the entire country to actually get a proposition on our ballot. And we've tried before to fix that, and this body has always said no. We like it really tough to make ballot initiatives. So I guess maybe it's just my personal opinion, but I would say that ballot initiative has no chance. But I would also say I didn't appreciate the intimidation from this group that basically says, if not this bill, we're coming for you. So I'd just like the body to know that, and I don't think that's at all a good reason not to discuss the 14-day window. And for people who maybe aren't as familiar with election law, there's about 4 significant dates in our primary system. And so this 14-day date is already kind of the established date for many of our counties when they go from absentee voting to move their registries and their poll books to sites, and we don't allow changes of that 14 days. So this is one of those kind of markers the good bringer of this amendment has found that would kind of easily dovetail and be a workable solution, I think, for our county clerks. Their association that represents them testified that they can make this work easily. And so I certainly think it's good. I think still the same conversation, at least the people in my part of the state like knowing who the candidates are before they are forced into registering for a party and being beholden, if they find out their next door neighbor is one of the other major or minor party candidates. So vote your conscience. I just think this is a better way to go with this amendment.
Representative Slagle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to just reiterate the comments brought from the speaker just up north here. And this ballot initiative is being pushed forward. And when I was out campaigning, a lot of people had issues with this, wanted it to happen. And it was coming ahead when COVID hit. And so because of COVID and the shutdowns of everything, the ballot initiative didn't make it through that time. But I'm just saying it is coming. And I think it's an issue of, do we really believe the party that we say we believe in? Are we really a Democrat or a Republican? That's really what this issue is. If we
Representative Slagle, we don't use party names at the mic.
Excuse me. If we really believe in the party that we endorse, do we stand behind that party or not? And I think that's really what this issue is. And that's what the primary is for the parties to pick the candidate they want to represent themselves. Thank you.
Further discussion? Representative Allemand.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that we need to keep it where it's at. I'm against this amendment. I have to file at a certain date so they know who I am. We ought to be able to also know who they are. Thank you.
Further discussion? Representative Storer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's worth considering the following. As I think you know that if you don't vote in a general election in Wyoming, you end up getting purged off the voter file. And in the next few months, so in an odd year, the counties take you off, and so you have to re-register in order to vote again. And of course, most people think about voting again the closer it gets to the election. So the numbers are this: we have after a presidential year, about 22,000 people get purged. After a non-presidential year, it's actually closer to 70,000 because a lot of people choose not to vote in the presidential year. What we end up having is in that period of time between May, when people are thinking about elections and hearing about who's running, more than 11,000 people register to vote in before the August primary in a non-presidential year, and 16,000 in a presidential year. So those are the people that are being disenfranchised by this bill. I do recognize the concern about making sure people know what they're doing when they sign up for different parties, but I really do think this is going to cause a lot of people who we really want to encourage to vote to not vote. And right now, less than a third of voters actually do vote in the primary. So we really want to go in the opposite direction and encourage people to vote rather than discourage them to vote. So on and for the amendment. Thank you.
Representative Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm actually here on behalf of most of my constituents. I think many people are here, and many of us were sent here largely with this being one of our goals. So I'm on and against the amendment. I know people are wanting people of like mind to make that decision in the primary. I know there's a lot of people that have just said, forget it, I don't like the party I'm in, I can't get anything done, I'm crossing over. We're not going to affect that. I had a lot of folks who said that, and that's where they're at. But in this particular case, I think we want to stop this last minute crossover component. I know my constituents sent me here to vote against this amendment in favor of a more robust crossover. Thank you.
Anyone else for your first time? Anyone else for your first time? Okay, moving on to second time. Anyone for your second time? Representative Haroldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, body, I would ask this question. We either are here today saying we're against the concept of crossover, or we're not against the concept of crossover. That's really the answer today, because if we're against the concept of crossover, then the bill needs to stand as it is. If we're for the idea or are okay with that idea, then we need to put the 14-day window in. Because at the end of all of this, really, it's a crossover vote that we are addressing in this moment. And that's what we've been sent here to address. It's what my constituents have asked me to address. It's what the many emails that we're getting have asked us to address. And so I would once again ask you guys to stand against this amendment and for the bill, and let's move forward a correction that will eliminate an issue.
Anyone else for your second time before the bringer? Seeing none, Speaker Summers.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So I agree. I don't think you should be able to cross over on the day of the primary. But I go back to the law in 1911 when it was 10 days, and I don't see what the issue is. One thing I found out in my campaign this year that was very interesting is I didn't really realize how many unaffiliated voters are out there. I got one of those little sheets from the clerk, and it tells you how many of this and that's in what area and district and precincts and all that. And I was really surprised about how many unaffiliated voters. And a lot of those, it's not about voting for you and me, it's about voting for your county commissioner, frankly. That's why people change their party. They want to vote for their locally elected individuals, and a lot of them don't want to be affiliated. And so all this says is, 14 days before you need to change your party affiliation if you're going to do it. And so I would encourage an aye vote.
Question on the amendment having been called. All those in favor of third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 103, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. No. Third reading amendment number 1 has passed. Division having been called. All those in favor, please stand. You may be seated. All those opposed, please stand. More than 21. That amendment has been defeated. We are on to the next one. Chairman Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pleased to move third reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 103 and ask for your favorable consideration. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where I rain on the parade, because once again, I guess I was just told we're here today to represent our constituents, which we are, but we're really here today to understand the consequences and ramifications of our actions. So if you're out there wondering why we've been talking about this for 10 years and why nothing has been done, let me talk to you about the National Voting Rights Act of 1993. It's otherwise called the Motor Voter Law. And Wyoming is now only one of 6 states that are not in the Motor Voter Law, because when the federal government did their usual coercive things back in 1993 about requiring states who wanted to jump over with some federal money to register voters, Wyoming said, heck no, we're not going to do it. And at that time, it was great because we hadn't had what we call HAVA, the Help American Vote Act of 2002, and we had our own system. But after 2002 and HAVA, by 2004 election, we actually integrated with the federal system. And so we're basically in a unified voter registration system with the federal government. It's a nice way to say it. So what that means is that Wyoming is only exempt. We're one of 6 states that are exempt from the Motor Voter Act because we allow same-day registration. And so that's the amendment I'm bringing. If you request an absentee ballot or you go to the polls on election day, if we take the step not allowing that change to happen, we fall then again under the Motor Voter Act, right? Maine did this 10 years ago. They realized the error of their ways. Then they redid all their laws and said, we're out. And the federal government said, nope, it says continuously, we're not letting you out. And so this is the reason why we have never done the crossover voting bill to the level that the proponents of this bill are bringing, because what the Motor Voter Act requires is that every time you go in to get your driver's license renewed, they make sure you are a registered voter or they sign you up. Same thing with all of our social service programs. You go in and you apply for SNAP, TANF, any number of federal programs, they're required to sign you up, right? And this will make our driver's license entity, our social service entities, sign those people up to vote. And you say, hey, that's a great thing, right? We want more registered voters. But in Wyoming, we're also really cool because when you're a registered voter, we make sure you're on a jury and you are in the jury pool. And if you refuse to be in a jury, all sorts of bad things happen. So I'm just making sure you're all aware, this is a very important bill. I don't want to call it feel good, but there are serious ramifications and consequences, which is why this bill never makes it all the way through. And there may have been a similar piece of legislation we don't talk about in the other body die today because of this exact same fact. Why I'm requesting this amendment, which I know people don't like because you don't want to be able, that's the whole point, to change your party when you register to vote on election day. I'm just telling you, if we don't, we fall under the National Motor Voter Act, and you're going to see a very big change in how we do elections in the state and how we register voters, because now YDOT's going to be registering your voters, not your county clerks. So be happy to answer any questions on that. You can certainly talk to your county clerks about that. You can look up information on the National Voter Rights Act of 1993. But I would ask you to put this language in the bill. It does limit the scope of what we're trying to do, but it keeps the federal government from forcing us, unless you don't want to elect our US senators and our US congresswoman the way we do. It's a really good amendment.
Representative Haroldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the Motor Voter Act, we had this conversation in committee, and the clerks made the statement that if we have the we're not removing people's opportunity to register to vote or to request an absentee. We're only removing their ability to change party affiliation on. So this actually does not breach. We heard it from a number of individuals in that position, and they said that that was not the case. And I need someone else to correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what they did say. They said this was not a breach of that. So I do believe as the bill stands, from the testimony we heard from our clerks and the Clerks Association, that this is not a breach of that act. If we were to then tell people they couldn't register day of, then that changes. If it's a person that phased out off of the registration and they came in day of and said, oh, I guess I'm not registered, I need to register, they can register. This is not prohibiting that. This is simply stating that that they cannot switch or change their party affiliation on the day of or in that window of before primary or general. But that does not exclude someone who is non-registered from registering. So in that, this bill will not breach that 93 Act.
Majority Floor Leader Nyman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for point of clarification for the good bringer of the amendment, my understanding was that you can register at the polls, but it requires a change of address. That if you've had a change of address, then you may register at the polls. But otherwise, it's not an ability to be able to change your affiliation or register unless you have had an immediate change of address, which would allow you to be able to vote. Just from clarification for my own benefit. Thank you, Mr. Bringer. Mr. Chairman.
Speaker Pro Tem Stith.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to divide the amendment. With lines 1 and 2 being Division 1 and lines 3 through 5 being Division 2.
Speaker Pro Tem, give me just a moment to review that, and I will make a ruling. That is divisible. Speaker Pro Tem, which division would you like first?
Mr. Chairman, Division 1.
Division 1. Please proceed.
Members, Division 1 relates to requesting an absentee ballot for the primary election, and I would encourage a no vote on this. I don't believe that we need this division in order to be in compliance with federal law. That is, my understanding of the Motor Voter Act is that to be exempt from the requirements of letting people register through their driver's license procedure, you have to allow them to register for election on election day at the polls. And so, as we'll discuss about Division 2 does that. But Division 1, I think, is unnecessary to achieve compliance with federal law. And so as a result, I request a no vote on Division 1.
Further discussion on Division 1? Question having been called, we are voting on Division 1 to third reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 103. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. Division 1 has failed. Moving on to Division 2, Speaker Pro Tem Stith.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that an aye vote on Division 2 may be warranted in order that we make sure that we're still in compliance with federal law. But I'd be happy to listen to discussion about that from people who may know federal election law better than I do.
Further discussion on Division 2, Representative Haroldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if you guys have your bill, let's go to page 2, line 22. And it says, for a primary election, an elector may declare or change party affiliation by completing an application signed before a notary officer or elected official and filing it with the county clerk before the first day on which an application for nomination may be filed under WS 225209. So that's basically saying May 15th. And then if we add this in, it says, or at the polls on the day of the primary election. So right there, it just says you can change on the day at the primary election, which is, that has nothing to do with registration, because they can register if they're not registered. They just can't change registration, which again, the clerks made very clear that they are not at all keeping someone from registering. They're still a registered voter. They're just keeping them from changing registration. So this is still not needed for legality purposes. What in essence this would do if we added it in would make this entire bill null and void and not eliminate in any way, shape, or form crossover voting. And so in essence, or in theory, what we're doing here is we're going to say, hey, you can't change except for on the day of election. And that right there would make this completely obsolete. Plus, as we heard from testimony from the clerks as well as Secretary of State, is not needed to keep us compliant with the Motor Voter Guide or Act. So I would definitely suggest a no vote on this division as well. Thank you very much.
Chairman Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, I'll push back a little bit on completely obsolete in any way, shape, or form. Those are a little charged. What I will say is, yes, this still would allow you on that election to do what we all don't like happening, is people coming in switching for that day. It wouldn't allow you to do that switch leading up to the election. And basically the conversation, no other state has tried this, because technically your primary election in Wyoming, we don't do caucuses, and so you're voting on your 2 U.S. senators and your U.S. rep who are partisan offices, and those are federal candidates for office. And so while it is, I believe, true, right, this is all a murky area, you can go and file and register and be a voter on the day of the primary election for the purposes normally of your city council and some other nonpartisan offices. So that allows you, yes, to go get a ballot, but you can't, under this bill, register as a partisan office after that May 15th date. So the question would be, does that violate your First Amendment rights to conscience, to assembly? Those are the things that people in the political philosophy world have asked. Your freedom of association, you want to register that day for a party, and can we restrict you from doing that? And certainly in other states who have accepted the Motor Voter Act, the answer has been yes, but none of the 6 states right now who have not done that have tried that step. And so I can't tell you today that for certain, but I can certainly tell you that it gives everybody a lot of apprehension that if somebody were to push this all the way or file a complaint, especially a federal election complaint, we believe, like what happened to the state of Maine 10 years ago, we would be forced into a situation where I don't think we have the full understanding of how it would affect the state. And that's traditionally been the issue with this bill, as I said, for 10 years. This idea didn't just show up, right? It's been around for a long time. Your Interim Corporations Committee, which I sat on for 10 years, has discussed this over and over and over. That's why I brought a bill that I thought would meet everybody's small step, but it met the discord that we were considering. So vote your conscience. I just think the bill would have a better time passing constitutional muster with this amendment in.
Representative Hornock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to read something from our state constitution, Article 6, Section 13. It's labeled purity of elections to be provided for. It says the legislature, us, shall pass laws to secure the purity of elections and guard against abuses of elective franchise. Thank you. Please vote against this amendment.
Representative Locke.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm on and against this amendment. I think that we've been through this, and I do know that there's this component where if a person's unregistered, they can register on the day of election. But at the end of the day, I do think we want to stop this crossover component. I know that people of a certain party in this state, again, I'm talking for my constituents, they just want to make sure that the people of like mind, are trying to elect the people for their primary, and they want to make sure those folks are the ones doing it. Now, I understand we're not all specific like mine. With that being said, I'm on and against this amendment and for the bill. Thank you.
Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to read from our Constitution as well. Article 1, Section 27, elections free and equal. Elections shall be open, free, and equal, and no power, civil or military, shall at any time interfere to prevent an untrammeled exercise or right of suffrage. I think that one works too. Now, I actually do have a serious question on this, on the implications for somebody who were to move to this state. So the way that the current bill without this amendment works, and this is a legitimate question, says that if you don't register to vote before May 15th, you cannot vote in a partisan election in August. I cannot register and change my party affiliation after May 15th. That's the way that I currently read what is being put in here. So if I move here, let's say June 17th, 18th, and I want to vote for my senator or my representative, because I moved here after that deadline, the way I'm reading this, and if I'm mistaken, I will stand corrected, but I am reading this that if I do not have this amendment, it basically restricts me from being able to vote in a partisan election for the primary. Major party. So I am concerned about that and how that works, but if I'm wrong, I'll stand corrected. I just hope that I can get some clarification on that. Thank you.
Anyone else for your first time? Anyone else for your first time? Moving on to second time? Anyone for your second time? Chairman Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to answer that question, it would be if you're trying to register for a major party ballot. And right now, we only have two, what we consider major parties. So oddly, you could come to the state and register as one of our minor parties. I think we still have 4 of them, but not one of our 2 major parties under this proposed law change.
Anyone else before your second time? Representative Haroldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So when we heard the conversation about this bill in committee, the clerk said that this will not keep someone who moves into our state from registering, because when they move out of their current state, when they leave that state and move into another state, there's actually a notification generated and sent to basically that they have moved, and they can then turn around and re-register in a major party or a minor party or whatever party they want, because they're moving in. It has to be with that move-in. This doesn't stop people from registering at all. This just stops people from switching. So if I were to come out of an election with a certain party affiliation, I then can turn around and change that affiliation up until the middle of May. If we were to put this on, you could change that affiliation on the day of election. This is not about the election. This is about the change, not the registration. This doesn't change registration. People still have the freedom to register if they're not registered. But this does change your ability to switch parties up into that day from May 15th to the day of the primary and 14 days before the general. This does not hold people away from being able to actually register to vote. If we did that, we would breach that 93 Act. But we're not telling people they can't register. We're just telling people they can't switch parties. And that's where this comes into play. So again, on the bill against the amendment, would ask for a no vote on this amendment.
Anyone else for your second time prior to the dividing individual? Anyone else for your second time? Speaker Pro Tem Stith.
Mr. Chairman, members, thank you. The reason I divided the amendment because I was very concerned about possibly violating federal law, because I just don't think we should be doing that. I haven't heard that the requiring someone to declare their affiliation, say 90 days earlier, whatever the time frame is now, that in itself violates federal law. What we do have now, though, it appears to be a kind of a clunky reading of the bill, because the way the bill reads now, it says that an elector, before receiving a major party ballot, has to have already declared their affiliation 3 months earlier. So that seems to, by its terms, prevent someone from getting a ballot on election day, which I'm sure was not the intent of the drafters of this bill. So from a policy point of view, I think you should be who you are. From a policy point of view, I think if you're going to be one party or the other, you should know that in May, from my point of view. That's kind of where I am on policy. I don't like people changing their party affiliation on the day of the election or 2 weeks before. From a policy point of view, I don't like that. We're on third reading now. We've got this clunky problem, however, that if we vote no on the amendment, then we may have people who can't get a ballot on election day, which is very strange. So my apologies for taking up so much time. I think on balance, I'm going to be a no on the division, and hopefully this will get sorted out before it gets enacted into law, if it does. Thank you.
With that, all those in favor of Division 2 for third reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 103, please say aye. All those opposed, no? No. That has failed. House Bill 103 having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Elliman. Allred. Andrew. Angelos. Banks. Bear. Berger. Brown. Burkhart. Byron. Chadwick. Chestick. Clauston. Conrad. Crago. Davis. Eklund. Haroldson. Harshman. Heiner. Henderson. Warnock. Jennings. Knapp. Larson Lloyd. Larson JT. Lawley. Locke. Nyman. Newsom. Nicholas. Nemec. Northrup. Oakley. Obermuller. O'Hearn. Olson. Ottman. Pendergraft. Penn. Provenza. Provenza. Rodriguez Williams. Sherwood. Sherwood. Singh. Slagle. Smith. Stith. Storer. Strock. Stivar. Tarver. Trujillo. Walters. Ward. Washit. Western. Winter. Wiley. Yin. Zwanitzer Dan. Zwanitzer Dave. Speaker Summers. Are there any changes? Clauston. No to aye. Byron. No to aye. Further changes? Closing vote. Vote closed. 51 aye, 9 no, 2 excused.
House Bill 103, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, House Bill 103 has passed the House. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House stand at recess until 2:15 p.m.
You have heard the Majority Floor Leader's motion. All those in favor say aye. Any committee announcement? All those opposed, no. Committee announcements. Chairman Washit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 1 will meet at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning in our normal room to continue with House Bill 241. Then we will work 248, House Bill 262, and time permitting, House Bill 101.
Chairman Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 3 is going to hold an extra meeting tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. to hear House Bill 163, Mineral Royalties Proportional Severance Tax Refunds. Again, that is at 7 a.m. in our usual room, East number 3.
Chairman Newsom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources Committee number 6 will meet in probably about 10 minutes in our usual room. We'll take on HB 92, Wyoming Film Production Rebates Program, House Bill 108, Sale of THC Vaping Devices and Edibles to Minors Prohibited, House Joint 003, Wild Horses and Burros Best Management Practices, and with time permitting, HB 255, Game and Fish Partners. Thank you.
Chairman Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 9, Minerals Business and Economic Development, will meet tomorrow morning at 8:10, just a small change in the time, to consider House Bill 132, House Bill 252, and House Bill 253.
Chairman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, will meet in about 15 minutes in our normal room E003 to discuss 3 bills: House Bill 154, Permanent Vehicle Registration, House Bill 199, License Plate Decal Breast Cancer Awareness, and if time permits, House Bill 277, Vehicle Registration, E-Certificate and Grace Period.
Representative O'Hearn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. American Red Cross is delivering lunch out front, but you got to go outside and get it to go.
Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your House appropriations will meet on adjournment. We'll have the re-referrals. The two that I have so far are 223 and 192. Then we also hear House Bill 188, wolf depredation, House Bill 284, collection agency regulation, House Bill 270, improvements of service districts, House Bill 267, conveyances on the right of refusal. So I had listed 105 and 250, but I don't think we'll be able to get through all of those tonight because many of our folks have a meeting in the evening. So we'll move those to noon on Friday for 105 and 250.
Chairman Northrup.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On Friday, we will be having our regular meeting on the noon recess, and we're going to meet right away after we get done. We got 4 bills to do: House Bill 203, House Bill 150, 283, and 194.
The House will stand in recess till 2:15.